I'm all dusty here, I've been working. A little note. You notice, if you've watched any of my other videos, there's an undercurrent of music. It's usually pretty low volume. It's supplied by YouTube. There's a lot of free stuff on it. I've always been using it, and it's going to stay because I really like the video making process, and I like the music in it. So I know some people don't care for music, but it's going to stick, sorry. But anyway, YouTube has been doing some kind of strange things as far as copyright is concerned and charging for stuff more, and it can be pretty expensive, and I don't want to buy music for this stuff. I don't want to put money into this. So starting with this video, you're going to be seeing some music that I've put together myself. So please bear with me, because I'm just getting used to it and learning how to make it. Thank you. I need to make a small side table to go beside a rocking chair for my daughter, and I made one already for her for another chair. These are in baby's rooms, and I made it out of yellow birch, which is nice to work with. I don't have any, and I'm not going to drive the distance to buy any unless I had to. And what I've got, maybe enough of, is some cherry. So let me show you what I've got here. What I've got is these 4 boards. Long one, small one, a very small one, and this piece of scrap. So I need to make this small table out of this, and my measurements indicate I might have just enough, maybe. So we're going to cut things up and see how it goes. Today I'm going to glue the top up, glue the legs together, and then we'll have all of our pieces that we need to work with, hopefully after I cut everything up. So by the end of this session, I should find out if I'm going to make it. And if I do, it'll just be barely. Okay, we're going to be doing 2 glue ups. One is of the top and the other one is of the legs. Now the legs I need kind of square, so I've got to glue 2 pieces of wood together so that I can trim them down to a square stalk. So I've got 4 legs to make and 1 top. So we'll glue those and we'll kind of call it a day with that for now too. I'll let them dry because I could cut up the other pieces of wood, but I like to get all of the dimensions of the actual table done first, and then when I go to put it together I can see exactly how long I need the other strips of wood and how wide I'd like them to be. You have the opportunity to get some parallel clamps. They're not cheap, they're pretty expensive, but for glue ups like this is nothing like them because you can lay the wood right into it and it clamps them square without any twisting. Now, this piece of wood has some bark on it, but I have to cut the width of this down so that bark will eventually be cut off. The next glue up incorporates these 2 pieces of wood to make a leg. And what I will do is I'll glue these up. These are about 1.5 inches thick when glued. And then I'll cut and plane them down so that they're square on all sides. Yes, I'm a one-finger gluer. 2 when there's a large surface. As you can see, my pants will almost stand up by themselves even between washings. Well, here we are in a sea of clamps. These are going to be the 4 legs. I wiped the glue off just enough so that it doesn't create a bumpy surface going through the planer with them. And you can never have enough clamps. You've probably heard that before. I have about 30 of these, and I've done single glue ups that required even more clamps than this, so it's nice to have them in order to get things done quickly without having to do them separately. Well, we'll let these set overnight and continue with them tomorrow. One nice thing about a small table is if I can get it to fit through the planer, which is about 12.5 inches wide, I don't have to work with the top much. I can put it through with the planer. And that's what this one happens to be, 12.5 inches wide. So I'm gonna cut it down and put it through the planer. Well, right now this is 18 by 12.5, and it's a small table because that's the size that is needed. And there was another one I made that was about this size too. So it's just a side table for a rocking chair. Now I want to put a nice edge on this, get this done. So over to the router table. This little router bit has made so many edges on drawers and doors and kitchen cabinets and tabletops. It's got so much mileage on it, and I just love the edge that it makes. So let's put one on this top, and we'll show it to you. And like any good router practice, you do the end grain first in case there's any rip out on the edges, and then the edge grain afterwards. These legs are 1.5 inches thick right now, and they're wider this way. So I want them square. So I'm going to cut them down just shy of 1.5 inches and finish the rest off on the planer. The stock is now squared away. The dimensions don't really matter. You know, they're as long as it's square all the way around, they're about the right size for a nice little table. And now we have to cut them to make sure they're all the right length and all the same length, otherwise I'll have a wobbly table, particularly with a small one. It'd drive you nuts. And then we need to do a little decorative stuff on them and then taper them. So that's coming up. It's not healthy to cut a piece of wood between the saw blade and the fence if it is wider than it is long. It can turn on you and cause all kinds of messy stuff to happen. So what we'll do is we will take and decide where we want to cut this. We'll bring the fence right up to this edge. So when I hit the blade, this has come off the stop block. And there'll be a space here and no damage. All exactly the same height. Now, this is a bead bit. And what it does, in my mind, is it makes 3 flutes in a piece of wood, which will make 3 grooves in the wood. Now, the next 2 steps that I'm going to be doing this and tapering the legs, can be skipped completely. This table could start being assembled now once we made the skirt boards. Keeps it really simple that way. But I want to do a little bit more and make it a little more decorative. So I'm going to make some flutes in it and a small strip of wood around the base of the table to make it a little more attractive to me. But no matter which way you do it, it's still a table and it still works. Okay, I've got it so these beads will hit right dead center in this piece of wood, I hope. So the router bit is mounted, and I'm not taking a cut all the way down to the bearing here. I'm going to do it twice because I don't want it to give me a hard time and tear out. I have a stop here because I want these flutes to be about 2 1/4 inches down each leg. So that's the distance right there, and with that stop, everyone will be exactly the same. Now it's going to hit the bearing and go down the full depth. What's with the slot in this? Well, I don't have it cut down yet, but along the bottoms of the skirt on the table, there's going to be a small strip of wood like this, decorative strip, and I want it to go around this leg also. So this cut, these flutes, and this strip of wood can be completely ignored if someone wants to make this without going to all of this work. You can just skip ahead to the assembly part. Now we're up to the leg tapering. And again, you can have a straight leg. You don't have to taper it, but I want to. Now here is the outside of the leg where the flutes are. So this isn't going to be showing, but these two sides are. So the outside of the leg I want straight on both sides, but the inside on this side and over here I want tapered. So the effect is when you look at it, you see a straight leg table with a taper on the inside of the legs. It looks pretty good that way. You can taper legs all four sides. It's a lot more work, it's trickier, and I think it looks good with the straight outside edges. So this is how we do it, should you decide to taper some legs. This is a tapering jig. It can be made many different ways. This is just one way. I didn't make anything elaborate because I don't taper legs that much. But there's a nice straight piece of plywood with a really good straight edge. It can go against the rail here. And then there's another piece of wood that is screwed onto this, and it is screwed at an angle like this. So here's the taper. This would be the end of the leg, and this is the top. So it has a taper right here. Now, if we were to take, and remember we want the taper to be on, not on the fluted edges, but on the flat edges on the inside. If we were to take this and you can see right here where the wood, can you see it? Let me get this closer. You can see that we come to a point where the plywood is sticking out, and then it starts to bevel off right here. And wherever the plywood starts to disappear, that's where the taper will start at, right here. So I'd like the taper, I don't want to be cutting into this slot at all, so I'd like the taper to start right about there. So I am going to take and make a mark right here. And I am going to clamp this leg on so it doesn't move. When we go through the table saw, it should miss this wood altogether, and then right about here it should start tapering. Now we've got to get this leg right on that line that I drew up here, so it's the same thing. And you'll notice how this goes down at a taper here. So what I'm going to do is take the wedge that I cut off and put it right here so that it'll make a good clamp. There. Stand off at the distance here, and here's the front of the table, here's the side of the table. See the two fluted edges? This edge is tapered, and also this edge. These two edges, the outside edges, are straight. I have 3 more to do. Now this is just a very simple jig. Some people make some really elaborate ones. I just don't make tapered legs that much. I make a few tables, and I think I've done it 4 times. So you can make one. These clamps you can get from Harbor Freight or some other places too. But I've seen it done even differently from this also. I've seen people make the wood part, which is nothing, a piece of plywood, a piece of wood, get the right taper on it. And then I've seen them put this on here like this and put a piece of wood, a block of wood with a pad on it, and put a screw in. So they have to put that screw in 4 legs, done twice, 8 times. And they have a jig that's good for a one-off thing, if they don't think they're going to use it much, or just being able to do that without having to buy one of these things. That screw will go in and out many times and hold this down. And you really want to hold it from moving up and down, but mostly this way. Another thing you can do too is, if you think it will stay up against this rail good, you can just put a screw in the plywood at this end so it doesn't go any further down. It won't be pushed down. But now I have 4 tapered legs with some burn marks from the saw. Because I didn't put a rip blade in here. This is a combination blade, so it'll do this. So I'm going to go touch these up on the belt sander. It's easier to do now than when I do assembly. The length of the skirt, the long side is 12 3/8, and the short side is 7 5/8. So I'm going to cut them together so I can be assured I have 2 identical pieces. So, with just a dry fit of 2 sides, this is basically what they're going to look like. Now, to keep this assembly simple and yet very good just the same, I'm going to use a Craig jig. And a Craig jig, for those of you who don't know, drills holes at an angle, and then there's a special screw that goes in it and holds things together. And it does remarkably well, and it makes a build really fast. I've set this up so I'll be using these 2 holes to drill 2 holes for screws right about there. And this is the Craig drill that has a collar set on it at a certain spot so that you get it exactly the right depth. That's what it looks like. Flip it over and do the other end. I am going to need to screw the top onto this, so I'm going to put 2 holes here also. Two holes to go into the legs and 1 to screw the top on. The placement of these, you can measure them, but it really doesn't matter as long as you get the top secured. There's going to be some glue on it anyway. So, I just got to do the other 3 exactly the same. And here they are, completed. I find the best way to assemble these is to just do a long side first, not trying to do it with the top. The top comes later. And we will need to put a 1/4 inch piece under here, and then put the side in here like this and get it situated just right. And I like to put a clamp on it just so nothing moves while I'm screwing it, because remember, for this one I've got to put a small recessed molding on the inside of this. So I've got to get it so that this is lined up with the slot perfectly. Now, if I had made this and left out a lot of the embellishments, like the flutes and the slot in there to put the molding in, or maybe even the tapered legs, I would have just been drilling these holes and assembling it as is. And of course, it would have made the build a lot easier, because I have to put that small strip of molding underneath, and that's going to be time consuming. But So you can make this build as easy as you want, just by gluing the top together, gluing the legs together, and assembling it if you wanted to. And I have done that before, and it makes a nice table. I just felt like doing this time. So these are Craig screws. There is a slot in the end, so they are self-drilling. This is what one looks like. This is recessed because of the 1/4-inch plywood, and the flutes are all on the outside edge. Okay, so this is roughly what the table will look like. The top is just laid on here. I don't have it glued on yet. And I still have this molding to put around here, which is going to be, you know, a little bit of work. And as you can see, let me get this out of the way here. The legs are straight on the sides, but they taper from the inside. The same thing from this side. Well, I've been all around this thing with little tiny puzzle pieces, and you're here to see the last 2 pieces of the puzzle go together. Got a little bit of glue on all sides. And there it is.